So God rejected those who were stubborn and naysaying. But what is the nature of that rejection? Paul talks about that in the following verses. It's not an absolute one, it's not an eternal decree. It's rather a partial rejection. There was always a remnant that was going to be saved. God is always choosing among the chosen. That is the basic principle of grace. I say then, it isn't that God rejected in the sense of totally rejected his people. May it never be. Kaigar, I in fact am an Israelite from the seed of Abraham. Notice that key word, sperma, Abraham. God has left to Abraham a seed of the tribe of Benjamin. Not every Jew since the return from exile was able to trace his tribe because those records were lost in the chaos of the exile. But Paul was of a family that could trace his tribal history back to Benjamin, so he is certainly a blue ribbon Israelite, we might say. God did not reject the people whom he foreknew in the sense of that he chose. The Latin dogmaticians have a word for this. They say he foreknew them, he knew them beforehand, cum affectu et effectu, with affection and with effection. Something happened because of it. In other words, he elected them. Or don't you know what the writing says in the Elijah section? Let me prove what I mean from what God says in Scripture in the section about Elijah. How he appealed to God against Israel, or he made a petition to God against Israel. Typically, we would think that you'd make an appeal to God for Israel, but here you have God's own prophet making an appeal to God against Israel. He's so frustrated, the prophet is. Kyrie tous prophetas. Lord, your prophets they kill. Your altars they tear down to the ground. And I am left all alone, and they're trying to kill me. You can hear his frustration in just the way the words are phrased there. The front shifting of the noun and the back shifting of the verb. Allah. But what does God's oracle say in return? What does God's formal statement, krematismos, is like an oracle of Delphi, a formal statement of the deity, the answer that comes from the deity to a question that you have implicitly posed to him. What does the oracle say in return? I have kept back for myself 7,000 people or men who have not bowed the knee to Baal. 7,000, is that a symbolic number representing a covenantal number, 4 being the number of earth, 3 being the number of God, and the 2 together signifies the covenant? We could speculate with numbers from now until eternity, and those that love revelation love to do so. I can only suggest that it might be in the background here, both in the ancient Hebrew text and in Paul's text here. God has reserved a discrete number of people who are still his own, who have not abandoned faith in him, who have not apostatized to another God. Hutos un kai en to nun kai ro. So also, in the present time, this passage still has relevance, that there's a laima kat eklogein charitos gegonen. Notice the perfect tense. This is a past event of election that redounds to a present state of or condition. So also in the present time there is a remnant by choice of grace, a remnant according to God's choice, made in his sovereign mercy. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy. Now, if it's a matter of grace, if it is by grace, uketi ex ergon, It can't be by works anymore. Notice once again how Paul returns to his theme. Grace to be grace has to be grace completely for all, or there is no grace at all. If you inject the idea of works into it, it ceases to be grace. It becomes let's make a deal. I scratch your back, you'll scratch mine. If it's dependent on me in some way, then it's never certain. But since it is by grace, it is no longer by works. Works are completely excluded. Otherwise, grace would lose its nature as grace. Grace would no longer be grace. And I think that's far enough to take it for this time.